Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Perry Goodall with the Enlighten Realty Group, hanging out with my homegirl, Esveiri. How's it going?
Going amazing this morning.
Amazing. Glad to hear that. All right, so I hear we have some really fun topics we're gonna, dive into today, specifically gearing towards the Hispanic community, and I'm really excited about that because I know that's a little bit of my heritage as well too, and that's your heritage as well. So let's go ahead and touch base on that. Why is the Hispanic community an importance for you when it's geared towards real estate?
Well, I love that you bring this up because I have a very big pride in my community. I am Mexican American. My parents, came from Mexico. So I'm a first generation child to Mexican parents. Growing up, all they knew was entrepreneurship, but they didn't have the help, the proper business knowledge to carry on a business. And for me, that's really, really important, is to be able to help my generation and the generations to come in order for them to be successful and, have that proper generational wealth knowledge. I find oftentimes we talk about generational wealth, but what does that mean? For me, it's important to provide knowledge. That way, we're filling that gap. For me, just yesterday, Kevin and I, this year we are part of NAHREP. So we're part of the National Association of Hispanic Realtors here in Milwaukee. So we're really excited to be part of this organization because we will be able to provide knowledge to our clients and, fill that gap where people don't have the knowledge and continue to build their wealth for their generations after, today.
Well, that's really exciting. First of all, congratulations to you and KG. That's a really big accomplishment and, a really good position to be in to really help educate those in the world of real estate. And you know what, Esveiri, I couldn't agree with you more. The Spanish side of my family as well, too. Looking back at my grandparents and, just hearing, the hard work ethic of my elders and things like that, too, they literally worked hard their entire lives. Like, I remember times, hearing that, my grandfather would work 7 days a week if need be, just to put food on the table for the family and things like that. But here's one thing that I learned growing up, and hindsight's 2020, watching them, is hard work doesn't necessarily mean smart work, and you only know what you know.
Yes.
And so for the longest time growing up, I always assumed that, renting was the way to go. Like, growing up, that I thought it'd be so expensive to be able to buy a house and all the expenses that would go with it. And then, then you get a little bit older, then you get around people who know a little bit more than you, and then you start to wisen up a little bit, and you're like, actually, you know what? It's actually better to be able to own versus it is to rent. And why don't you touch a little bit on that, why that's important?
Yes, I couldn't agree more with what you said. My parents coming here from Mexico, that's what they did, is work hard, work hard, work hard. But when it comes to, renting and owning, for my parents, they started renting, they built a down payment, but they did what they were told. So that's where I come from, having the importance of educating. That way they understand the transition from renting to owning and understanding, the difference. Because the lack of knowledge that my parents didn't have, and not just my parents, but just our community in general, it's very important for them to start asking the right questions. So some of the questions that, I get a lot is, well, how do I do it? How do I start? And that's where, me and what, in my opinion, everyone should, be doing is providing that knowledge.
Right. And so, that's the beautiful part about being a realtor. And I always tell people there's a difference between being a real estate agent versus a realtor. And a lot of people confuse and think that they're one and the same, in which they're not. And the way I break it down to them is, all right, okay, there's a difference between a teacher and a professor, right? There's a difference between, a doctor and a surgeon. And, we here as part of the ERG team, we're all realtors. And the reason why that's so important is you bring so much more knowledge and education to the table when you're helping out people such as first-time home buyers. And I know that's, something that you like to deal with is first-time home buyers. Why don't you talk a little bit about that? Why is first-time home buyers so important to you to work with?
Yes, so working with first time anything is very important to me because, like I've been saying, most of the people that come to me don't know how to start and what questions to ask. So for me, it's very, very important to give them pretty much the roadmap. And just in my background alone, I started in the banking world in 2012. I didn't realize how important it was for people to learn the very basics of how to manage a checking and a savings account. I've met people who didn't know the difference between a checking and a savings account. They didn't know how to balance a checkbook. They didn't know how to write checks. They didn't know how to use online banking, credit cards. That is the very basic knowledge where I help them.
Okay.
As a realtor, I get calls all the time. Hey, I'm in a pickle.
Right.
And at that point, I'm just like, whoa, it should have never got to that point. So for me, it's getting them young, providing that knowledge when it comes to managing bank accounts, learning how to review and manage their money, creating a roadmap in order for them to protect that money, and also strategize. Like, what is your dreams, goals, and timeline?
Okay.
So for me, starting with the very basics is very important. That way, when they're coming to me, hey, one of my goals in that roadmap is to buy property. Well, at that point, they're ready to go, and I can help strategize on that one goal in itself. Because you, for example, Perry, I know you work a lot with investors and you're very, very well articulated in that area. For me, it's working with the first-time investors, working with first-time home buyers, and giving them the ability to understand what they're getting into. So all in all, it's very important for me to bring that value to them. So that is another reason why I love working with first-time home buyers, because it not only helps me understand, them as a person, but it gives me the ability to educate them. That way their future generations don't have to be in that pickle and then have to clean all that up and delay their process. So that's part of the reason why I love working with first-time home buyers.
Nice. And another topic really important too, dealing with first-time home buyers is, I don't know about you, but I have a lot of first-time home buyers that come with this preconceived notion of these little myths that they heard along the way, like such as, you need a X amount of a down payment, or I need my credit score to do this before I can even get started. What are some of the common things that you've heard dealing with first-time home buyers? And, what are some of the things that you can shine some light on regarding that?
Yes, that's a very great point. A lot of the main questions is, I just had a conversation yesterday with a buyer who was referred from another family member, and she was in a huge pickle. She pretty much thought that in order for her to purchase, she had to have 20, 25, even 30%. And I'm like, no. I learned about this client. It was said that they got into a verbal agreement and pretty much it created this whole mess. So it delayed their process and their dreams and their goals to buy their first home. So now they're at a point where they have to clear it up in order to start. But they're in a better position now financially where they can start the process. But it goes back to what I was saying, you said many people have this myth in their mind where they need 25, 30, 35, 40, even 50 or all cash to buy. And that's not necessarily the case. So that's another reason why it's important for me to also educate people on how to ask the right questions and clearing up and debunking all these myths. So no, you do not need 10% to buy. There's programs out there that offer as little as 1%.
Nice. 1%.
So just ask us, and we'll be able to help. There's many opportunities.
Fantastic.
Many missed opportunities as well.
You know, and I know that, you know, as we're going through this right now, we're actually in the holiday season. You know, everybody's getting ready for, you know, the Black Friday sales, Cyber Monday sales. You know, it's so funny. I think, like, you know, when I was a kid, I remember everything would happen after Thanksgiving. And now it's like you got Black Friday, Cyber Monday happening, you know, in the middle of October type of deal. But, you know, as we get ready for the holidays, you know, for both buyers and sellers, you know, you hear a lot of people talk about, oh, let's wait till the springtime. Why is it still a great time to still either buy or sell a house during the holidays as we're getting ready to approach, you know, the holiday season and the New Year's right around the corner?
This is a great question. And I've had many buyers reach out as well during this time, curious on starting. But the biggest thing is I'll just wait for rates to, you know, drop.
Yep.
So in talking to these clients, you know, yes, there's different quarters, but they all move differently. So when there's lower rates, prices tend to get bid up and there's more competition. So the buyer pool grows. So where, for example, this month, I'm just throwing out, you know, a random scenario, nothing true. But let's say, you know, I have a client A who is buying in December. You know, this property is at 300. And I have client B who is buying in the summer at 300 list price. Where in December, you know, there's less competition. Likely you're going to be up against 2 to 3 other buyers who submitted an offer. And client B is buying in the summer, same list price, 300. And now rates have dropped, let's say 3%. That's obviously not the case I expect ever again. But, you know, rates dropped. And now we have 20 buyers. So now you're up against at least 7 to 10 offers. So you have a lower probability of getting that house than if you were to buy in December at a high rate. So if you buy at 300 in the summer, you're at 320, but you're up against 8 to 10 other people. In some situations, depending on the location, perhaps even 20 people. So the probability is lower and your search will be longer. So that's one of the reasons why, you know, it's important to talk to the realtor, get to know the market in all quarters. What's the difference between buying at a high rate versus a low rate, and running the numbers. You know, like you had mentioned, and you always talk in office, the numbers don't lie.
Right.
So run the numbers, even if you're a cash buyer, run the numbers if you are financing. That way you can get a proper amortization schedule and understand, you know, both scenarios. And of course, every person has different goals. So the numbers is what's really going to help a buyer determine when they should buy.
Absolutely. You know, and another thing on that topic is now that we're talking about wintertime versus springtime as well, you know, it's really important, especially as us as realtors, is to really get to know the client's needs. I don't care if it's the seller or the buyer side, you know, why is now such an important time to be able to either A, list the house, or B, that they need to find a house. And for a lot of those sellers that are wondering, you know, hey, should I wait until the springtime, or is now a really good time in the wintertime? And I always tell people, you know, it depends. You know, it depends on a couple of things. You know, number one, you know, what are you looking to accomplish, you know, selling your house now versus the springtime? Is time of the essence? You know, do you have a place in mind where you need to move to? Do you have a timeline of when you need to be out of the house by? And I always let sellers know, like, hey, the wintertime is such a great time because even though there's less buyers in the market, but you're dealing with more serious buyers. There's a reason why somebody's going out, especially we're here in Wisconsin. Let's face it. We have, sub-zero temperatures sometimes. We get it could be like 50 degrees one day and all of a sudden, like 2 hours later, here's a blizzard, right? Who in their right mind would want to go see a house during that time frame? Well, clearly somebody who's maybe relocating and they have like until next week to be able to find a place because they're moving from Florida to Wisconsin because of a job opportunity or something like that. Well, there you go. Now you have a serious buyer who is willing to give you a fair negotiation of a deal in order to be able to buy your house. At the same time, you as that seller, hey, now you have the opportunity during the slow season to really get your ducks in a row and figure out, okay, where's the next location that me and my family want to move? Okay, I know that my daughter is going to be going to high school next year. This is the ideal area that we want, our daughter to go to due to sports or, they're, to help her with her career path, whatever it may be. So, the wintertime is a fantastic time on both ends, both buyers and sellers, to be able to put themselves in the best position to be able to get ultimately what they need that's best for themselves and their family.
Yes, I cannot agree more.
A few things I wanted to touch on while we still have a little bit of time here is let's talk about NAHREP. Okay. Now, once again, congratulations to you and KG. That's a big deal. But can you further elaborate, like, what is it and why is it important to you that you're on the board with them?
That's a great question, Perry. So one of the main reasons why KG, Kevin, and I have decided to align ourselves with NAHREP, Milwaukee's chapter, is because it really aligns to my personal values, my integrity, and my mission to help the Latino community. Prior to even being part of the board, I had insight already. While being at Lending, I was a member myself, so I attended many of their events and I found great value. So much of that value that they gave me, I found really important to bring it back to, my clients, and not only my clients, but also my family and friends. So the NAHREP 10 laws, I'll share it. So if you don't follow me on social media, please do. You will see that there. So all of those laws and, the mission values of NAHREP, they really align. So just take a look.
I will. So, in order for us to follow you on social media, what are some of the social media sites that you're on right now?
You can follow me on my social media. I have a very unique name,
Okay.
so it won't be difficult to find me. But we'll leave the links in the video. But my name is Esveiri Escobar, double E.
Double E or SV, baby.
Yep,
Yes.
you got it.
Absolutely. Now, with the New Year's along its way, 2024 right around the corner, man, this year has definitely flown by. What is some really good advice that you can give first-time home buyers that are getting ready to, get in the marketplace to buy a house? What are some important things of them not to do as they officially have their pre-approval letter and begin looking at properties? What are some official things that they should not do? And then when they're under contract, what are some additional things they should also not do as they lead up to closing?
The holidays, we find ourselves spending a lot of money. We think that tax season will cover those expenses that we incurred in December. But I will encourage everyone to take December as a business planning opportunity. You don't have to be self-employed, but if you are someone who works for somebody, it's very important to create a budget in December, stick to it. First-time home buyers nowadays, at least within my generation, they're making very good money, but they oftentimes don't have a proper budget. So for me, the number one suggestion I could provide someone is create a budget, talk to a financial advisor if you need to, just to ask them questions on how to create that budget. If you don't have a financial advisor, just write down how much money you make, what are your fixed expenses per month, and your fund money, and you'll get your net after. So number one is create a budget. Number two is figure out what is your goal. What do I want to accomplish within a year? What do I want to accomplish in 5 years? So once they get that idea down, follow the budget, don't overspend. When it comes to someone who is already pre-approved, the number one thing I highly suggest is do not get additional debts. So oftentimes tax season comes, people want to upgrade their vehicles. Vehicle is probably the second largest monthly payment aside from a mortgage if you don't already have one. So oftentimes people get into this huge debt with, a fancy sports car. I recommend you don't do that if buying a house is in your 1 year plan, maybe even 5, and live within your means. Don't get credit cards just because. Don't get, fancy vehicles if you don't need them or if you can't afford them. And stick to a budget. If you can save at least $100 to $200 a week for a whole year, year and a half, at that point, in a year and a half or even a year, you'll have a down payment for a first home. So those would be my recommendations: is figure out your budget, follow the budget, and do not get any new debts prior or while you're under contract on buying your home.
Right. So once again, just to reiterate, if you're under contract and the closing table is right around the corner, we know it's the holiday season. Don't max out your credit cards just yet. Don't get your spouse that brand new car with the ribbon right before closing. Literally, I think that's probably like an agent's worst nightmare, is just before closing, is hearing that our clients either maxed out their credit cards, opened up some new credit cards, maybe co-signed on a loan is a big one. Like, hey, for Christmas or the holiday season, hey, our 16-year-old just got their license and we want to surprise them with a brand new car. Wait until after closing.
Yeah, the other point I want to make is that, a lot of people mistake the fact that good credit is having, 700 plus, but they don't realize it's not just the points. What is your FICO points? It's also important to realize that the debts matter, because when you're working and you're under contract, your lenders, they don't care about the points. Why? Because once they run your credit, that credit report is valid for a certain period. I believe it's 90 days, if I'm not mistaken. So if you're running your credit cards, getting new debts, at that point at closing, you're no longer eligible for your pre-approval. So that's the other tip, is don't get fooled by having a high FICO score, because in reality, it's not just that. It's the thing that really matters is how much debt do you have, because your pre-approval, factors in those debts. So how much mortgage can you get, are eligible for, in addition to all those other debts. And that's the reason why we say don't get additional debts when you're under contract. Employment is also very important. Don't quit or get fired while you're under contract. It's very important to maintain employment. Reason being is because, let's say you ask your cousin for some cash. Do you believe in your cousin paying you back if they're unemployed? It's the same with the bank. If they are promising a note, but then you're unemployed, why should they give you the loan if you're now unemployed? How are you going to repay that loan back?
Exactly, man. I think we all have family members that we know that we borrowed money to however many years ago, and right around the holiday time, you just get a little bit awkward. Just kidding. But, I mean, it's true. I'm a firm believer that if I'm going to give somebody, a little bit of money, I'm not going to lend it to them. For me, it's a gift. Hey,
Yeah.
you know what? Don't worry about it. It's a gift. That doesn't mean that I got an open wallet here, so I'll just come knocking on my door. Hey, he's just handing out free money like it's a monopoly. No, that's not it. But and well said about the credit scores, because I've had people, and the job time too. There's people that I've met that were first time home buyers. I hooked them up some really good lenders that got them in really good situations to be able to get pre-approved, where they have fantastic, job history. They make really good money. But here's also the good news. You know, they maybe were like a 580 and we were able to get them an FHA loan
Yeah.
and we were able to get them their first house. But there's other incidences too where, you know, I have people, like you said, you know, they had a really good FICO score, but, you know, they job hopped all the time and they just got a brand new job and now they're making less money at this job than they did at the one beforehand. And that can change the whole scenario. So another word of advice I always like to give people is don't do anything for the first time without first consulting either your realtor or B the mortgage lender that's giving you the pre-approval letter, because they're the ones that are going to have the best interest and make sure that it's a smooth finish to the closing table. So
Yes, I think that's very important, and I appreciate that you said that. You know, being a realtor, I want to be that trusted advisor lifelong for our clients. And, uh, you know, I love that my clients still reach out after closing to reconfirm, hey, Esveiri, I got this letter. What do you think? So that's very important. You know, consult with someone trusted to kind of figure out, you know, is this, you know, right? Is this wrong? So I very much agree with that.
okay. And as we wrap things up, you know, coming into the new year, you know, what's one good word of advice that you'd like to give everybody?
So I love real estate. I learned so much about people. So my number one, you know, advice to everyone is be kind to each other. Have gratitude. Don't lose your faith, and call me for your real estate needs.
Fantastic. Thanks, Esveiri. Happy holidays, everybody.